Fantasy managers were able to put out their full strength lineups after a full slate of games in Major League Rugby's round 7, something we haven't seen since week 1 of the 2023 MLR season. We break down all those matchups up, talk about the top performers in round 7, give you a little waiver wire update, and of course look ahead to what's to come in round 8. The Fantasy Ruckers Show starts right now.
Where rugby and the world of fantasy sports collide. Welcome to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, talking all things rugby from the MLR to leagues around the world. We're on top of it. Headphones on, pads off. This is the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Now, here are your hosts, Ryan Yee, Matt Yee, and Devin Vanderpool.
What's up, everybody? This is episode number 60 of the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Thank you so much to our Fantasy Ruckers League members, our community members, and everyone else tagging along on this journey of trying to make fantasy rugby a reality in the MLR and talk about a full slate of games in round 7.
That's right.
Full force of fantasy rosters here putting forward. There was no buys, no players that people had to replace in their starting lineups. It was a full week of full powered fantasy lineups in round 7. Haven't had that since round 1, so it was definitely an exciting one. Matt Yee, Devin Vanderpool here with me as always. Boys, how did round 7 treat you guys?
Well, I think how round 7 treated one of us. You know, look at the number 1, the ribbon I got here. I'm out of this world because obviously nobody can catch me at the top here when I'm out of space. You know, it is what it is. Sorry, Vandy, man. I don't think they have a background for the sewers.
Yeah, no, I was looking.
Hey, not quite at the bottom, Vandy. You still got those 2 wins, and you're still trying to move yourself up.
Hey,
so
my
we're
points
there,
4 are coming up, man.
That's coming up, and we'll break it all down here. But yeah, for our listeners to the podcast, you may not see the video screen here on our YouTube video. Matt's got a number 1 ribbon there on his bottom right corner there.
Hey, participation trophy at this point.
No.
And he has a background of him being in space right now because I guess
out
that's
of this
how he
world,
feels.
Ryan. I'm out of this world.
You better win. You better win the whole thing, buddy.
Well, we're going to break it all down how the Fantasy Ruckers League went, but we obviously got a jam-packed. I mentioned it. It's a full slate of games that we had in round 8, a full powered fantasy lineups, or excuse me, in round 7, a full powered fantasy lineup for all of our leagues there. And it's going to be interesting to break down how that had an impact in there. So we're going to get to all of that, obviously break down the latest news and notes, talks a little bit about the Waiver-Wire, and obviously preview round 8, which should be another exciting week of MLR. Because I gotta say, guys, this MLR season has been entertaining. I mean, you take a look at the standings and just how close teams are. And you even just look at the matches that happened in round 7. Some of them just being decided by the slimmest of margins, not to mention the Dallas Jackals getting their very first franchise victory ever. There was a lot of emotion in that one. But yeah, almost a big upset by Nola Gold with the Seattle Seawolves. I don't know. It just feels like this the round 7 really epitomized what the 2023 year has been so far for the MLR season, because it has been exciting. And dang, it is tight so far when it comes to the standings in the actual MLR standings.
I wish Utah was in the East, man.
Hey,
would have been a whole different story.
Everybody wishes they're in the East when Nola Gold is sitting in second place at 3 and 4.
No, New England took number 1 now.
Well, Nola's sitting at 2 at a losing record, under 500. They're sitting at the second in the division.
Yeah, wild, eh?
Yeah, that Eastern Conference is definitely close there. I mean,
who saw Rugby New York would be in 3rd in the division?
True.
4th.
True.
Now,
mind you, Nola Gold hasn't had their bye week yet. They do have bye this week, so we'll see how that kind of shit plays out. But I do think round 8 is going to have a huge implication on that. But we're going to break that all down like we mentioned. But before we get into that, got to mention, like we do every single episode, if you aren't already, make sure you're giving us a follow at the Fantasy Ruckers. If you're watching us on the YouTube channel, you can see the social media links there above. If you're on the podcast version, all the links to that are down below as well. But yeah, we've been having an absolute blast. 60 episodes into this, guys, including the inaugural season and this season.
Oh yeah.
What a journey it's been so far, and we've only been continuing to grow this fantasy MLR thing. More people hopping on board. It's been super fun. If you've liked what you've seen, which like what you've heard so far, make sure you're liking, subscribing. It goes a long way for us in supporting the podcast and supporting the Fantasy Ruckers community. And if all of that is enough for you in terms of content when it comes to fantasy MLR, we also got a Discord channel that you can join, link down below as well. We've had a flurry of people joining the Discord community as of late, and it's been popping off there with people talking all things rugby when it comes to the MLR, when it comes to fantasy MLR, and even just rugby that's happening around the world as well. It's been super fun.
Yeah, where are they coming from? I don't know, but keep them coming. Keep them coming.
Hey, they're hopping on the train of trying to make fantasy rugby a reality in the MLR. But all right, let's move on here, guys. Let's talk a little bit of news and notes, and let's get some of this out of the way before we start breaking down the Fantasy Ruckers League and give the people a Fantasy Ruckers League update. Not as much news as what we had last week. I felt like there was a whole flurry of trades the week before that we had to break down. Some signings, some news, some
and jerseys
coming out that we broke down as well. But this week a little bit drier there on the news standpoint, but nonetheless, still some important stuff happening, particularly three mediocre signings, at least when it comes to fantasy MLR impact, that maybe people will keep a little bit of an eye on. The first one happening back on March 31st, the Houston SaberCats signing Asa Carter, who was before on the Austin Gilgronis and the Dallas Jackals. He
made his appearance this weekend.
He did make his appearance this weekend, appeared in the lineup. I believe he played like 6 minutes. But in the interesting note here in the tweet sent out by James Dealey, he completes the Texas trifecta in having appeared for every single Texas MLR team that has been a part of the league so far. So Asa Carter just making his rounds there in the Lone Star State.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was playing for the Houston HT. I didn't even know they had this HTX team that I guess is part of their kind of development team. I looked on that lineup. It looks like Jax Hidalgo. I don't know if you guys remember him from last season. I certainly remember him. I had him on my squad for a little bit. But they had Jax Hidalgo on there. It looks like Houston's got a little bit of a nice development squad there to pull guys from if they ever run into some injury trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Asa Carter is a guy that, from a fantasy perspective, I'm just pulling up his numbers here, we'll see what he's able to do. Last season, with the amount he played, he was able to finish, I believe, 272nd in the entire fantasy. So we'll see whether or not he can shift that on over. But yeah, Asa Carter making his rounds there in Texas. Another signing that happened just at the time of this recording the podcast, Langi Haupikui.
Oh,
pardon me.
Did I get that? Did I get it right?
Like,
I don't even know. But let's just call him. Let's just call him.
I'm calling him Langi.
Lang.
He signs with Old Glory DC. I want to say the back row player. For a guy that played on the LA Guiltinis, not quite fantasy relevant in the past with our added stats. He finished 378th in our ranking.
Although he is a champion.
He is a champion. Did win a champion on the LA Guiltinis, and it's definitely some well-needed depth that is required on that Old Glory DC side that continues to try to get over this hump that they just can't get past. But nonetheless, Langi will hope to make a contribution there in US's capital. And then lastly here, a signing here that I think, Matt, you may be a little bit more familiar with, but London Irish Academy grad Luke Green joins the San Diego Legion on loan for MLR 2023. That was announced by the London Irish and forwarded on by our very own James Dealey. Should be interesting to see what he does here for the San Diego Legion, which is already a team that is absolutely star-studded.
Yeah, if only we could bring on James Dealey with a click of a button and have him talk about it. I think London Irish are his boys back home in England, so I'm sure he would have much more to say to that. It seems like on Twitter that he was excited about it. So yeah, who knows? We'll have to figure out what his impact is and see if maybe somebody is going to have to scoop him up at some point this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just pulling up his player profile here right now. Yeah, this is a guy that has a whole bunch of experience there, obviously overseas. And it's always, again, like we've mentioned before, always good to see some of these guys making the jump over to the MLR and seeing what they're able to do here on stateside. Yeah, tight head prop, Luke Green, 21 years old. should be interesting to see what he does in a San Diego Legion jersey. All right, guys. Well, again, not much news and notes, so I guess we'll get right to it. I know Matthew looks forward to this segment. I knew he dreaded it before, but he definitely looks forward to this segment now. But I think it's time to give the people a little bit of a Fantasy Ruckers League update.
Give it to him, Ryan. Gotta give it to him.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. All right, hear ye, hear ye. Here is Commissioner Yee with a Fantasy Ruckers League update. And again, just like emulating what is happening in the MLR, I must say that the standings within our Fantasy Ruckers League, the very first Fantasy MLR League, is definitely just as tight. I mean, we have 4 people all in the middle of the pack. They're fighting for these playoff spots, sitting at a 4-3 record. Vandy, I know you shake your head, but you're not too far off, buddy. I mean, you're only 2 wins back from sneaking out that playoff spot. Matt, I know that all of our viewers and listeners are pretty quite clear on how your season is going so well. Quite the turnaround from our inaugural season last year. I don't know yet if our league members, or I should say even just any of our listeners or viewers or followers, are tired yet about hearing your successes here.
There's
So
18 weeks this year, so we got a long way to go. We're not even.
We do have a long way to go. I mean, yeah, we are only about, I would say, I guess, honestly, I think we're about halfway almost here in at least the fantasy.
Half
league
of 18,
season.
Ryan.
Playoffs will.
So.
Well, no, because our fantasy league playoffs will begin in week 15.
Fair enough.
So
you guys got a fist fight already.
Yeah, it's true. I know it's getting to my head, man. Now that I got to deal with this on a daily basis, that he's texting me all the time with his big results. And even this week, he was like, "Man, I'm concerned that I'm not going to come away with a victory in this one." And yet he has guys on his team that are popping off for triple-digit meters.
Must be nice, eh?
Hey, it was concerning going into Sunday for sure.
All right. Well, hey, let's break down some of these matchups. Feral Hippies taking on you, Vandy, the Rucking Goat in this one to start off the week. A little bit of a rough patch for you here after coming off back-to-back wins.
Missing some guys,
84.3 to 64.5, taking the loss there. It was a decently important matchup there because Feral Hippies does jump ahead here. But again, Vandy, you're just working here towards getting that point total up, and at least you were able to make some sort of contributions here in that week, because I feel like that point total is definitely going to play a big part here in the season moving forward.
Way to make contribution, Vandy.
Moving on to the next one, Ruck and Roll taking care of business against Gimme the Loots, despite what seemed to be some concerns coming out of round 8.
I would have been so mad if I gave MLR all access to our first win. It would have been brutal.
It would have been very poetic, let me tell you. When you were texting me your concerns and I hadn't had calculated the stats yet, I was like, is there a chance that MLR All Access gets their first victory against the top dog? I found out
there was no chance.
I don't think that you would have heard the end of it. But yeah, nonetheless, you took care of business. 92.2 to 65.6. MLR All Access still searching for that first victory. Lads on Tour, our former MLR champion, racking up the highest point total of the week, 94.1, taking down Eagles Overseas, 63.5. MLR Stats, second highest point total of the week, 92.8, taking down Dankus Anchors, 68.9 point total. And then we got Rugby Morning beating up on his good friend Rugby Wrap Up there with Matt McCarthy, 92.2 to 76.2 in a big time win there as well, which will have big implications in the standings that I'll bring up now. Again, Ruck and Roll at the top still, only with that one loss.
Ryan.
6 wins, out of this world, apparently. 631.3 total fantasy points. That's almost, I guess, 80 points more than or I shouldn't say 80 points, almost 70 points higher than the next team in this league, which is Rugby Morning, which is a team that you had concern with.
At that point, though, almost finding life on another planet at this point.
Oh my God!
You know what I mean?
This has got to stop.
You better win! Oh my God, you better win!
All right, Lads on Tour coming in next. Our former champion in our inaugural season. He's the only one that has his name etched on this jersey back here. He's been slowly moving up the rankings,
turned it around. Oh my God!
Yeah, let me tell you.
He was in third last at one point.
Yeah, 5 wins, 2 losses, 553.9 total fantasy points on the season. He finds himself in second. Yeah, doing work there, JJ, for getting his squad
Twice
back
the
turned
champ.
around. Then we got 4 teams tied for third place here. Rugby Morning, Rugby Wrap Up, MLR Stats, Dankus Anchors, all with the 4-3 record. And again, reminding our listeners and reminding our league members that 6 teams make playoffs. So the cutoff right now is that 4-win mark. Dankus Anchors in that last spot, but that point total having a huge difference there in slotting those guys between 3rd position and 6th position. Coming in next, Feral Hippies, Eagles Overseas, 3 wins, 4 losses. They're right there. Feral Hippies still has a pretty dang high point total. If he was just able to rack up a few wins here, he may find himself in a completely different position as well. Vandy, I said your point total is moving up, but your wins not as quickly. Rucking Goat there, two wins, 5 losses, but still got some time to turn around. Only 2 wins back of a playoff spot, and again, MLR All Access still searching for that first win here in the Fantasy Ruckers League. Their first win, I guess, in franchise history. The Dallas Jackals have been able to do it.
Do it.
The
MLR
Chicago Hounds have been able to do it.
There you go. That's right.
Maybe it's MLR All Access's turn as well. So, yeah, it's been an absolute blast of a season so far as we've reached the halfway point. Still very, very tight and still very, very close in terms of who's going to be making our second year's Fantasy MLR playoffs. Should be very interesting. But, yeah, just a reminder to all of our league members as well. Make sure you're keeping an eye on injuries, making sure you're sending me updates with regards to getting those guys off IR and potentially guys that you may have injured that you saw. I outlined all the rules and protocols that you need to take in place to get those guys on IR. So make sure that you're doing that. Make sure you're checking also the player eligibility as well, because as different starts continue to be made throughout this season, those continue to change as well. So keep an eye out for that as well. But all right, you guys ready to break down some of these round 7 matchups? It was an exciting week, man. A very exciting. We alluded to it at the start of it, but
lots of points this weekend.
Absolutely. Again, want to remind here before we move on to a breakdown of this week, if you want to check out any of these standing stats, matchups, or even just player stats, not even from a fantasy level, but just numbers that these players have been able to collect over the season so far, make sure you're checking out the fantasyruckers.com. It's been absolutely a game changer so far this season. Big shout out to Alistair Kirsch-Poole, putting that all together. Oddball Gentleman on our Discord channel. He's been an absolute hero when it comes to making this work here so far in this season's been fantastic in 2023. So all right, let's move on to some of these matchups here. Obviously this weekend, because there was a full slate of 6 matchups across the league, they had to spread out the games a little bit, to an extent.
What the heck?
To an extent. To an extent. At least we had.
To what extent? They
at least we had matches
at 4 o'clock on Sunday.
We had matches on every single day of the weekend, which is a start.
What do you mean? I don't even care. They could have it. Look, they have the one. They did the least amount of spreading out that they could possibly do. They did one on Friday night. Okay, one on Saturday. By the way, both of those are ridiculously late for a game. Okay, for the only game that day, ridiculously. And then Sunday, they throw what? A game, 2 games at 3, 1 game at 4. And then another game at 3.
In fairness, Matt, the world does not revolve around the Eastern time zone. So in retrospect of what the time it was in Utah and the time it was in Dallas, not terrible times.
Well, I mean, then why are they playing 12 o'clock games on the West Coast?
You know what? You got a point there. You got a point there. But all right, let's talk about this match that opened up on Friday. Vandy, your boys coming out.
I told you.
Victory. Utah Warrior taking down the New England Free Jacks at home on Friday. Yeah, I mean, what a match. They showed up.
Dude, Joe Mono breaking knees again. Joel Hodgson could have punched another one in for me at the end. He didn't. I get it. No problem. No, big dub. Big dub. The defense looks solid. You know, they're New England's front pack looked pretty good, but other than that, I think we played pretty darn good.
Offensively, you guys look so good. I mean, dude, like Joel Hodgson in the last couple of weeks has stepped it up another level. That offense looks incredible.
Yep. Yeah. No, Joe Mono, he had a good one. McAdie looked good out there too.
Yeah. And you know what? The only unfortunate downside was that Lasike looks like, I mean, there's a couple injuries that game. Lasike got hurt. It looked like his knee didn't look too good. He went down and held his knee pretty quick. And Mitch Wilson on the New England Free Jacks.
Yeah.
I mean, he was out like a light for a second there. We hope that he's
Yeah.
getting better soon. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
Utah pulling out that win. What an incredible
Huge
win.
win.
Yeah, and I guess
Huge.
some concern now is starting to seep in a little bit with this New England Free Jacks side, because what was, I guess, a pretty solid start for this Free Jacks team. They have definitely shown a little bit of weakness here.
Well, they're starting to
over
look
the
pretty
past
banged
couple of
up
weeks.
too.
I mean, yeah, and that is true as well. I mean, they come off a win here, or they come off a loss, I should say, against the Utah Warriors. They just squeaked by a win against the Dallas Jackals in the week before.
Yeah.
So again, there may be over the past couple weeks a little bit of cause for concern here. I will say a big part of that I have noticed is that I don't think it's a coincidence that the absence of Josh Larson for the New England Free Jacks, team captain, heartbeat of that pack.
Yeah.
He's been away for the past couple matches, and the fact that they've kind of been struggling a little bit, I don't think that's a coincidence.
Yeah.
But let's shift it over though to more of a fantasy conversation. Let's start off with the Utah Warriors and the amount of points that some of these guys were able to score. Joe Mano, I mean, he doesn't even need the full match.
No.
32 minutes played, and he still.
I mean, it was a
16
huge
points.
try too, like massive meters gained on that try.
117 total meters gained in that match. Like I said, 16.8 fantasy points with that try being scored. Adds a couple tackles in there as well. And this is a guy now that is leading the entire fantasy world in the rankings. He's the #1 player right now in fantasy MLR. And if you would have told me Joe Mano was the 2023 leader at any point of the season, right? He might not finish. He's probably not going to finish like that towards the end of the year. But at any point of the season, that Joe Mano was going to be a guy that I believe was picked up, right? He wasn't a draft pick, I don't think. The fact that he's #1 right now in the entire fantasy MLR rankings is absolutely insane. I mean, you look at out of the 6 weeks he's played, 4 of them have been double-digit points, all over 15 points. He just missed double digits in week 1 and week 5, 9.2 and 8.2. 35.6 point performance last week with that big mega 3-try performance. I mean, this guy is rolling right now for the Utah Warriors.
Yeah, he's been honestly just ridiculous. I don't understand. Every time he touches the ball, it's just electricity in his feet. The guy just knows how to break tackles. He knows when he has space, nobody can stop him. And Bailey Wilson knew that on that try. He gave it to him early. Joe Mano had the space. Joe Mano, you trust him. You give him the ball, and he does the rest. You don't need him to do anything else.
Another disgusting juke he put on homie, too.
Yeah.
So, another big time performance for Joe Mano. Remains to be seen how long he can keep this up. But at this point,
I mean, hey, we hope he comes back next week because he went off with HIA, so that's why he went off, and you hope he's all right.
Yeah, it's always the questionable one when it comes to HIA stuff. Never know how long that's going to pan out. Let's shift over to another big time performer, Hunga Havili, second rower for the Utah Warriors. 17.6 fantasy points from that second row position, absolutely massive. 72 meters gained, scored that try, adding 8 tackles as well. Hunga Havili doing work there in that match against the New England Free Jacks.
I mean, this game was ridiculously physical. And he was one of the guys that contributed to this, right? Like the way that he was running with the ball, the way that he scored his try, it was just, the epitome of physicality.
Well, he was playing so good, we couldn't even get him off the field. Like, I think that was his first full game of the year, too.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the guy hasn't topped up over 40 minutes all year. And this year they put him out for 80 minutes and the guy shows up.
Oh, man. He is a beast.
Just a couple more guys that I want to mention on the Utah Warriors side. I want to mention Thomas Tuivau. He had a solid game, 15 tackles, 78 meters gained, 13.3 points scored. And then Matt, you mentioned him, Joel Hodgson. Maybe not the flashiest fantasy performance, but the fact that, again, consistency, 4 straight weeks now with double-digit performances, 11.2 in round 7, 80 minutes played. Not really necessarily the biggest threat from the meters gained perspective, but that boot just allows him to provide so much consistency. 1 conversion kick, 3 penalty kicks made in this past week. You're just going to get solid double-digit points every single week from Joel Hodgson, it appears like.
Yeah, 100%.
I hope you're right. Buddy.
Yeah, what a pick by you there, Vandy, having him on your team.
Thank you very much.
That's definitely a good one. All right, switching over to the New England Free Jacks side. Again, not necessarily the biggest fantasy point performers in this week. You got Paula Balakena, who, Matt, I know you've been raving about him so far this season in
Yeah.
terms of he was a
He had a
big
good try.
pickup
He had a
at
good
the start
try.
of the season. 63 meters gain in this one, a try, 6 tackles, 14.6 total fantasy points. He's a guy that seems to be a constant contributor, at least from the offensive standpoint, for this New England Free Jacks side. 4 out of 5 of the past weeks, he scored double-digit points.
Yeah, I mean, he had an off week last week, something that we didn't expect, but he just seems to they seem to find him somehow, and he ends up in the try zone, and he also creates for himself sometimes too. So it's really great to see. I mean, another guy outside of Balakane, I want to make sure we touch on is Ryan Conradi. Ryan, I mean, that guy has been the epitome of consistency. We talk about guys that are putting up points at the back row position. He is just continuing to show up, puts 80 minutes every week, and always shows up for the guys, for the fantasy managers that has him.
And he's a guy that's right now 6th in fantasy MLR rankings. You know,
Yeah.
who would have thought that Wyan Conradi would be among the best back rowers in from a fantasy MLR perspective heading into this year. Definitely another one of those surprises, nice surprises here for the 2023 season. Another guy I want to mention here, and I know, Matt, you'll be happy to hear this, Jason Potros. I mean, you talk about consistency. We talked about Joel Hodgson, but on the other side, the guy that he's going up against. Again, another double-digit performance.
Great from the boot, Vandy.
Great from the boot again, and I think that's the biggest point here with these fly halves. I think with this fly half position, you're not really necessarily going to be getting these massive point performances, but you're really expecting them to be consistent at that position, and I think that's a key for success when it comes to competing here in the Fantasy Ruckers League because of their ability to be from the boot.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But what I will say about Jason Potros is that guy, if there was a stat for running away from tackles and you get down, you get minus points for that, he would have got so many less points. This guy was not ready to make a tackle at all. There was one-on-one tackles. He just kind of felt he did a me thing. This is something I would do when a guy's running at me full speed. I would just fall and say, "Oh, I tried my best," and that's what happened with him. So yeah,
I mean, I will say though that he's not the only 10 in this league that is
well,
allergic
that is
to
true.
tackling.
That is true.
There are many others that we'll definitely be bringing up in the coming breakdowns here in these matches. But one last guy that I want to mention, Wayne Vanderbank.
Yeah.
He was pretty consistent in this one. Again, when it comes to consistency in fantasy MLR, I think there's 2 ways that you're going to get it done. It's going to be kicking from the fly half position, and with the centers back row positions, it's going to be a lot of tackles, and that's what Wayne Vanderbank was able to do in round 7. 14 tackles, 72 meters gained, 13.4 point performance in this one. Definitely one that would have helped you out in a fantasy week. Any last players that I missed there that you guys want to mention?
No, I mean, I will say, I will throw up that with Paul, we got to look out for Paulo Sike's injury. Maybe we'll touch on this in the waiver wire, but Tyler Fisher, we saw what he could do when Paulo Sike was out, and expect that potentially for the upcoming weeks, but we can get that to the waiver wire.
All right, let's shift on now over to, I guess, one of the biggest results, the most meaningful results in the season so far, maybe. But the Dallas Jackals racking up their very first win in franchise history, and you could see the emotion and the relief from some of these players on the Dallas
when they
Jackals
panned
side.
to the booth. I don't know if that was the owner or who that was, but he just drops on his knees and starts crying. That was awesome, man.
14-11 victory there in Dallas. Toronto had the opportunity to go there and tie the match, but ended up resorting to trying to get the win there. I don't know if you can blame them. It's a tough decision to be made, but nonetheless, they went for it all and they fell just a bit short, and obviously that played to Dallas Jackals' favor, and they come away with the victory at home, the first time in their franchise's history.
See them all waiting around at the 80-minute, like the whistle went. They were hoping for like a knock on or whatever, and they're all waiting around. They're like, "It's over, right? It's over, right?"
Right. Now the question becomes, like, Matt, being a guy that has been in these situations before, do you go for the kick there and tie the match up, or do you go for the victory?
I mean, from a fan perspective, and I don't know what you're thinking in that game, but I understand Rumble's thinking was probably like, look, we don't a tie is not going to up the boys, right? The tie is not going to help us turn this around. We got to go for the win. And when you think about it in the long run, a tie when they're 1-5 isn't going to do much damage or help to them in the standings or help to them in the long run. They had to go for it. I think it was great that they went for it. And it's just unfortunate. I know that Jam Delay brought up a point that they've struggled to convert, but I think they had no choice. They just had to go for it.
And I think that's a great point too. It's all contextual, right? I think it would be a different story if maybe they were in, let's say, a Nola Gold situation or Old Glory DCs where they're right in the thick of a race in the Eastern Conference, and that extra 2 points would have gone a long way when it comes to their placement in the standings. But again, there's a Toronto Arrows side that has been struggling. They're sitting now with, I believe, a 1-5 record, and I think contextually they really needed a victory there, especially knowing that they're going home now for a long stretch here, which we know this Toronto Arrows team really turns things around when they do play at home.
Yeah.
So if they were able to get a victory going into that, would have been a big thing in there. But all right, let's break down some of these fantasy players. Really, when you look at this matchup, 14-11 game, you're not going to have many point performers here when you're taking out of it. Again, the big storyline here is that the Dallas Jackals were able to come away with their first franchise victory. But I gotta give a shout out to a guy that scores his very first career try in the MLR, and a guy that has looked impressive as a rookie so far this season, Sam Galla.
Dude, he looked like a man doing it too. Holy.
54 meters gained, a try scored, 14 tackles, 15.6 fantasy points. He's impressing this season so far in his very first year in the MLR.
Definitely a bright spot for the Jackals, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's only a few rookies that have really been on the level that he has been. I mean, he's the clear number one guy coming out of the draft. But then you got Jack Shaw, you got Colin Gross out in DC. But even looking at those guys who have gotten the opportunity, like Sam Galla has really taken that opportunity and kind of just seized it. And he's been honestly massive. One of the top. Oh yeah, he's been one of the top players on that team as well.
And how big of an advantage is it too that he's a guy that you were expecting to play at the back row position, but he's scoring these points from a second row position this season, at least from a fantasy perspective. I mean, the past 3 weeks, he's almost 2 out of 3 weeks, he's broken double-digit points, and last week he wasn't far from it, 9.5. So a guy, you're slotting at your second row position, you're quite happy with how Sam Galla is performing so far. When I look at this Dallas Jackals game, really, there's no one else that I really need to bring up here again, unless there's anyone that you guys had to mention. Boyson is a big one with the tackles every single week.
Yeah, I mean, Boyson has the past 4 weeks have put up, or past 3 weeks, I guess, has been putting up 19, 22, 21 tackles. 21. It's another week with 20 plus tackles. Yeah. This time I saw him being able to carry the ball a bit more, get more involved, picking up 72 meters gained. I mean, it's so great to be able to rely on guys like that who are picking up those tackles, and everything else that they get is just kind of icing on the cake,
I'm pretty sure he got the most meters for the Jackals too.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Thought I heard them say that.
He did get the most meters by the Jackals, 72 meters gained this.
So you get the most tackles and the most meters gained.
That's true.
Tell me that guy doesn't want it.
13.5 fantasy points there. He's also the leading point scorer here for this Dallas Jackals team. It's no surprise. It goes Boyson and then Sam Galla. So it's
and then Gomez Vara. Let's go.
Oh yeah.
All right. Let's shift over now to the Toronto side of things. Tough to try to pick out some fantasy performers here. But I mean, Fabian Goodall, solid performance. 160 meters gained, 5 tackles has started to come in now with the absence of Tulatasi Tasi, right? I believe. Yeah. And he's seeming taking advantage of kind of the increased workload at that center position. Has started the past 4 matches. Double-digit performances in all 4 of those. 13.6 fantasy points in this one. If there's any bright spot for this Toronto team, at least from a fantasy point, it seems to be Fabian Goodall.
No, I mean, I think and when Tuolatasi Tasi comes back, those two are guys that were just, when they get the ball, they're making game line. Yeah, Toronto maybe does absolutely nothing with it, but those two guys have been a bright spot for this team, and they've always continued to be a force with the ball, and guys that you can kind of rely on, that Toronto's going to rely on to get that go-forward ball that they get so little of.
And just to put things into perspective in terms of these teams that may be struggling a little bit here, you throw Toronto in there, you throw Dallas in there, you throw Chicago in there. Toronto has by far the lowest point totals. I mean, their best point total scorer right now is Sam Malcolm at 56 points. Dallas's top point scorer with his boy Adrian Boyson is 79.6. So
Yeah.
a big gap there. So it's tough right now to see anything that's to look forward to from a fantasy perspective with this Toronto team.
It's tough to even slot those guys
I'm
man.
going to talk about this in the waiver wire, but there's going to be something to look forward to with this Toronto team.
Well, we mentioned that they are returning home, so I have a feeling it might have something maybe to do with that as well. But nonetheless, congratulations to the Dallas Jackals for coming away with your first franchise victory.
Just before we move on, though, and congrats to the Dallas Jackals. I do want to bring up Ramon Ayarza. The guy gets MLR Team of the Week honors. He puts up 63 meters gain as a hooker, 7 tackles, 8.4 fantasy points. I think that's another bright spot that we can look at in a guy that has, been inconsistent, but when he gets his chance, I think he has his flashes of brilliance there too.
There we go. All right, let's shift on over now to the Sunday matches now.
How do I watch them all?
How do I watch them all? You got to get the different screens, man. You got to get the screens up. That's what I had going this past weekend.
Made of money.
But let's start off. Well, I mean, you're number one now. You got to make investments.
That's right. You got to pretend like you're just grinding, baby.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Let's talk about this first matchup that opens Sunday at 2:00 Eastern time. The Chicago Hounds taking on the Houston SaberCats at home. Houston basically taking care of business, 38-21 victory over the SaberCats. Chicago still looks like a team that is still trying to find their footing here. But nonetheless, with a 38-21 victory or 38-21 loss, you're still going to find guys that are fantasy relevant on the Chicago Hounds side. But before we get into any of the specific players, just overall thoughts about this Houston SaberCats Chicago matchup.
I don't know if I want to call it a comeback that Chicago is trying to mount there, or if just it was kind of like garbage time for Houston. Because I think that I don't think Chicago had a point at half. And I think Houston just kind of went on cruise mode. I mean, the one thing I noticed, and the announcer said it great, when Mark O'Keefe got his try, he just man-possessed, does it all himself. He said the one thing if you watch Chicago play is they don't have support lines for these guys. So Mark O'Keefe had to just do it all himself. Like so many times in these tries, one guy has to make a spectacular play because there's just no support lines.
Absolutely. Matt, anything to add to that?
No, I mean, Vanny got it all, but I think this Houston squad is just a force to be reckoned with. If you look at some of those back. If you look at some of those tries, sometimes it just looks a little too easy for them.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is a Houston SaberCats team that racked up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tries in this match, which is definitely what fantasy managers like to see.
Yeah.
Let's break down some of these players on the Houston SaberCats side first. Then we talk about I think the big ones for me at least is Dominic Aquina. The big one there.
Looked great.
He looked really good. Second highest point scorer for this Houston SaberCats team so far. 12.8 fantasy points in this one. 68 meters gain, added try to that, and 5 tackles. Definitely a guy that has been a big instrumental part of the success of Houston so far. And then I obviously it feels like we talk about this guy almost every single week, but David Coates. I mean, this is a guy that he another guy that's just clutch from the boot. 4 conversion kicks in this one, adds the try as well. 29 meters gained, 16 total fantasy points. This is a guy that has scored double-digit points in 4 out of 6 weeks. The 2 weeks that he didn't, he was right on the cusp there with 7.3 in round 2 and 8.5 in round 4.
Yeah.
David Coates, one of the top tier fly halves here for fantasy MLR in 2023.
Yeah, I mean, David Coates is just clearly just showing us that he's a huge part of this offense, and not only just orchestrating it, but also the ability to kind of score tries. And it's been a sight to see. Another guy I do want to bring up, moving on from David Coates, is we got to talk about Dino Muir.
Yep.
I mean, the guy's been back for 2 weeks. The guy puts up in the front row position a try each week. 12 points, 8.5 points. Following week, he follows it up with 15 tackles in this game in 40 minutes. I mean, in 54 minutes. I mean, it's just
he seems like a guy. He seems like a guy when he's playing, you just rally around him. Your team is better when he's in the lineup, whether he's getting the points or not. You just rally around that guy.
And I'm sure Steven will be happy to kind of start seeing that because he was, I believe,
Good
I
win,
think we mentioned
Steven.
it
Well deserved, my
like
man.
we mentioned last week, that Dean Muir was our first front rower taken off the board in our
Yeah.
fantasy MLR draft. So for him to now start paying dividends now is a big deal here. Last guy I'll mention on Houston, Drew Wild. He looks pretty solid. 59 meters gained, one
Yep.
try,
You know how
7
many
tackles.
times I had to watch that try back? I had to watch it back like 15 times trying to figure out, how the heck did he just release the ball, stand up, pick it up, and just go like that? I mean, what a
Yeah.
ridiculously smart play.
All right, and then let's shift over now to Chicago side. We mentioned him. I mean, it really the big story is Mark O'Keefe. Despite
So good.
the loss here, 130 meters gained. He
So
now
good.
has triple-digit meters gained in 4 of the 6 matches that he's played. Scores a try on top of that, 18.9 total fantasy points. This is a guy that I don't think you need to be too concerned about of making differences here from a fantasy perspective, despite being on a struggling Chicago team. He'll have
No.
his matches here and there where he doesn't show up from a fantasy standpoint. Last year was one of those duds, 3.3 fantasy points, but nonetheless, he seems to be able to kind of rack up those meters gained so far.
Yeah, he's really showing how comfortable he looks on that wing, and the fact that he's able to just create something out of nothing for himself, or just kind of like in the similar fashion of Joe Mano. Once he gets the ball in space,
Yeah.
he's going to create something with it. And he's going to do something with it, and we've seen
Even
that
without
every
space, man, he could just make people miss. He's got that magic in him where like those kind of little piddly arm tackles aren't going to work.
Those are the ones that I like to make.
Yeah, that's that low effort move I always made in football.
Yeah.
Oh, I tried, coach. I tried.
The last guy that I want to mention, interesting to see Chris Mattina start at that fly half position,
Yeah.
Which is pretty big. I mean, this is a guy that has been making a huge impact this season from the back 3 position. Goes out there, has kicking duties, does pretty solid. 12.2 fantasy points, 70 meters gained, 3 conversion kicks, and 4 tackles. Pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I think he missed 2 conversions or something like that. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, the question for me is like, what does this mean for Luke Carty? I mean, yes, they didn't get the win, but anything can really like they're trying. It seems like now they're at the point of, hey, let's try to mix things up so we can try and turn this around for them, because their backline they're doing a lot worse than what that roster should be doing.
And that's an interesting point that you bring up there, Matt, because they definitely don't have any shortage of options when it comes to that back line. I mean, JP Eloff was the one that slotted in there to the fullback position.
Yeah.
Typically, what Chris Mattina has been playing over the past the start to the season. We know Mark O'Keefe has earned himself the spot there at that other back 3 position. And I mean, you're not taking Julian Dominguez out with the play length, play breaking ability that he has, and we know Bill Meeks, Bryce Campbell are the staples of that center line. So we'll see how that kind of moves around. It'll be interesting moving forward.
And I have to shout out Luke Carty's pass out to Mark O'Keefe for that try. That was ridiculous. That's all I got to say. And then just before we move on to the next game, right, Billy Meeks, we got to talk about him. I mean, he's just doing what he does best. 81 meters gained, 10 tackles. Yeah, not the greatest, but 2 steals. That's just vintage or classic Billy Meeks, putting on a show that Rugby Morning has always wanted them to do.
It's just so interesting to me. I mean, I guess that just goes to how complex, winning in the MLR really is, because you look on paper, man, with this back line, and it's just like there really should be no reason why. I don't know. I know Houston is a very tough opponent, but to think that Chicago is, I guess, is still 1 and 5 in their season so far with kind of the types of players that they have, at least individually. I guess it just goes to show you how big it really is in the world of rugby to kind of have that cohesive unit, which it sounds like, or it looks like that Chicago is still kind of trying to find their footing with. All right, let's shift on over to the next Sunday matchup here then. The New York Ironworkers taking on Rugby Atlanta at home. I think, again, this is another one where it was just the New York Ironworkers really taking care of business, 31-20 victory at Mount Vernon. And what was fun about this one was there was a whole bunch of fantasy performers in this one that you could really pinpoint, which is always fun for fantasy managers to see. But overall thoughts on Rugby New York getting the victory against what seems to be a struggling Rugby Atlanta side?
I mean, I don't think we're surprised by that, right? Like, Rugby New York really needed the win at home. I thought they came out and showed out with some pretty incredible offensive play. I mean, that try to Jason Emery was just ridiculous from Cara Pryor. And I think they showed out at home. I think it's great to have Jack Hyden back. I think they're really benefiting from that because, I think they saw how much Jack Hyden meant to that offense.
Even though he had a bad turnover, which led to that try.
That's,
Andrew caught to chase him down.
Hey, as long as you let one, but you score 4, you're good.
Yeah. Well, then all of a sudden he comes down the other way. Jack Hyden does a nice little pass over to Andrew Coe. Coe slams it in. I'm like, all right, that's a payback for saving that try.
Yeah.
No kidding. Let's start, I guess, with some of these players here. I want to start with maybe one of the unsung heroes, but Benjamin Bonasso. What a performance by him. 73 meters gained, 24 tackles, and a try assist, leading to 17 total fantasy points. Really his biggest fantasy performance of the season so far. Impressive to see from the back rower here, instrumental part of this victory. And then let's talk about Jack Hyden there, Matt. 15.6 total fantasy points. Hadn't made an appearance, obviously, since round 3, making a comeback here. 73 meters gained, add the try assist, 11 tackles, and 3 conversion kicks. Yeah, I don't think I think I couldn't agree more that Jack Hyden is an instrumental part of this offense.
He's played 4 games. And he's their second highest point total.
No kidding.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
And hopefully Ed Fido's okay.
Yeah,
I think he only played like 20 minutes of the game.
Yeah, hopefully Ed Fido's okay. Hopefully
still scoring a try though too, right?
Yeah.
he can't leave the field until scoring a try.
God no.
Hopefully Pago Haini is okay. It seems like everybody's kind of running into injuries, but I think to the point, Ryan, where we're talking about Benjamin Bonasso, he's just really taking the opportunity of a lot of those back row guys in Rugby New York being hurt, and really stepping up and showing, he deserves to be in that starting lineup.
Yeah. And the guy that took advantage of the Pago Haini injury got slotted in there, obviously.
I called it, Ryan, last week.
You did call it. 19.8 fantasy points, 67 meters gain, a try assist, a try, and 17 tackles. Big time performance there by Carv Pryor. And then the last guy I want to mention is Nick Feeks. Didn't score a try in this one, but starting at that fullback position, he was able to rack up a whole bunch of
175 meters or something.
133, not quite.
Duncan Matthews level.
130, yeah, Duncan Matthews level. 133 meters gain, a try assist, 3 tackles, 16.7 fantasy points. Yeah, he looked really, really good. It's going to be interesting to see how he kind of slots in between, I guess, a backline that includes, and this is obviously barring how the health is of Ed Fido, but Ed Fido, you got Andrew Coe, you got Nick Feeks, Sam Windsor, from the back 3 position, and then I believe Quinn Nagawati. He also starts there sometimes on the outside as well. So time to see how that plays out will be an interesting one too. All right, let's shift over to Rugby Atlanta's side of things.
Damn.
I think the ham is right. I think the biggest guy that we got to mention is a guy that has yet to score less than double-digit fantasy point performances. 17.2 is second highest performance of the season. 87 meters gained, 1 try, 10 tackles. You talk about consistency. This is a guy that can do that.
Yeah, I mean, he has had a ridiculous season so far, just at that back row position, consistently playing full games, consistently getting meters gained, consistently being up to double digits of tackles. I mean, this is the guy, the prototype that we talked about of guys that we needed on teams to get you for consistent points, and that's what you want to see out of your back row.
Absolutely. Ruida Biddle making the return from injury. 109 meters gained in this one. 12.5 fantasy points. Pretty solid performance by him. Starting again at the back 3 position. So this is a guy that you may have double center back 3 eligibility with him, which is going to be.
They must know. Hey, Rugby Atlanta must know. They're trying to make sure that he's keeping both eligibilities. So that in our fantasy league he can play both positions. The fantasy manager can get something out of it.
That's right.
Exactly. Absolutely. And then the last guy I want to mention from this match, making his second appearance of the season, first start of the year, Nolan Tuomo-Heloa.
That works.
That's pretpretty good. 105 meters gained, 62 minutes played, 6 tackles. Solid performance there out of what was a lot of kind of meh fantasy performance from the Rugby Atlanta side, but that is a guy that I wanted to mention there. I know this next game now is one that Matt is definitely excited to talk about, and we talk about fantasy performers. This is a match that had a whole bunch of them too. The NOLA Gold taking on the Seattle Seawolves, and damn, were they close coming away with the victory against the undefeated Seattle Seawolves, but just wasn't able to pull it out of the bag. They started out fast. They got off to a pretty solid lead. I believe it was like almost a 2-score lead, I believe, at at one point in that first half. But just not enough to get over that hump there and beat the Seattle Seawolves. So before, I guess, we get into kind of these individual performances, that there was no shortage of them in this one on both sides of the team. Kind of thoughts over Nola's really turning this thing around, Matt. Your prediction is looking a whole lot better now as we progress through this season. That is for sure.
Hey, look, I mean, I would have been happier if they came out with a win. I had to stick with them, and they looked good in the first half, but Seattle just put the pedal down and said, all right, we're taking this, we're taking control, we're showing you why we're a 6-0 team. I was interested to see why Damian Stevens was started, but it looked like, he comes in and he leads the team to a really great first half. And it's just great to see that the Nola goal, that my prediction is it's being realized here in some capacity.
They should just listen to me.
Yeah, no kidding. That's a subtle way to put it, Matt. I guess the guy, though, that if we're going to start breaking down individual fantasy performances, do I need to say his name? I guess we should just include him in the rundown every single week, because Tom Florence.
Oh, I thought you were going to say JP Duplessis.
No,
Yeah,
not
you
yet.
could say him too.
You could probably say him too, but let's get to Tom Florence first. Tom friggin' Florence, man. 19.3 fantasy points, 4 straight weeks of double-digit performances, 3 straight weeks of over 15 points. In this one, 94 meters gained, a try, 81 minutes played, 8 tackles. This guy's insane. This guy from a fantasy perspective is your dream. And you talk about maybe having a guy that was your prototypical back row that you'd like to see from a fantasy MLR build standpoint. He's the guy that does it, and he is right now. I'm looking at the standings here.
While you're bringing this up, I don't know about prototypical. This guy is getting all of his points from meters gained. I mean, you get 90 plus meters gained like over the past 4 out of the 5 past weeks. It's just ridiculous.
And every time too.
Yeah, and every time he touches the ball, he's breaking the line. Every time somebody's having trouble tackling, they need to bring 2 guys. They need to bring 3 guys. It's just ridiculous watching him sometimes.
Third best scorer in the entire world of fantasy MLR right now.
Yeah.
So 100.9 total fantasy points on the season. Now, mind you, he is behind the guy that we're going to be talking about next year.
That was a loaded question.
That was a loaded question. JP Duplessis, pretty solid performance in this one too. 14.5 fantasy points. You talk about guys that have been racking up double-digit points. 5 straight weeks of double-digit performances. 14.5 points in round 7. 55 meters gained, a try, 10 tackles. Out of steal as well. JP Duplessis is one of those guys that has been a staple of fantasy MLR right now.
The craziest stat: he's gotten a steal in every game he's played.
Really?
Every game he's played, he's gotten a steal.
What does a steal get you again for points? 4?
3 points.
3.
I think 3 points, yeah.
3 points.
Well,
baby.
He's just behind Joe Mano right now, in second place in the
hasn't his buy yet though.
Standings. That is true, and I think that's something that I want to mention. When you look at some of these standings, you got JP Duplessis, Tom Florence, and Rodney Iona, who we're going to talk about right now, all at the top of the standings. Expect that to maybe change here after their bye week in round 8, but we'll see how that plays out. They can definitely still be up there. It just depends on how some of these other guys around them do perform. But let's talk about Rodney Iona. After, I guess, what was a tough start to the season, just like with Nola Gold, he's turned things around and now has 4 out of 5 weeks since round 3 has scored double-digit performances. He has that massive 32.6 point performance in round 4. In round 7, 19 points, 89 meters gained, 2 try assists, 7 tackles, and 4 conversion kicks. Again, emphasizing how important it is at that fly half position to have a guy that can really be depended on to slot you some of those extra points from conversion kicks and penalty kicks.
Yeah, just ridiculous. And it's clear that the Nola Gold is kind of riding his play, and the way that he projects is the same way that the team's going to project. So it's great to see, and it clearly just shows how big of a part he plays for that squad.
Absolutely. All right, just a couple other guys I want to mention. Dougie Fife had a pretty solid performance, 63 meters gained, a try, 11.9 fantasy points for him, starting, I guess, in place of Jordan Trainer at that fullback position. So something for managers to keep an eye out as they move forward with that backline. Probably just a resting thing. And then, yeah, I know we mentioned Damian Stevens about it, but man, Luke Campbell, even coming off the bench,
20 minutes
not really the point performance that you want, but I mean, you're salvaging something. 22 minutes, able to get the 32 meters gain and score the try. Luke Campbell, I wouldn't be surprised to see him back in the starting lineup come next week.
After his
Or
bye.
at least
He's on bye
after
next
his
week.
bye. After the couple next weeks, we'll see whether or not he slots in right back.
What am I going to do with that?
Rest. That's true.
No scrum halves on the waiver.
You got to figure it out. All right. Well, maybe that's you got to stay tuned for the waiver wire segment. There you go. You got to stay tuned for that. All right. Let's look at the Seattle Seawolves side of things. I don't know, Matt, if this makes you happy or if this makes you sad, because I believe you don't have him on your team anymore. But Connor Mooneyham.
I do not have him on my team.
What a performance. I think the performance of the week, I believe he was named the player of the week.
I'm pretty sure he's a free agent.
129 meters gained, 2 tries, 3 tackles in there as well. What a performance there by Connor Mooneyham.
Yeah,
I mean, to be fair, he hasn't really done much at all this year, but what a breakout game.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we were expecting from Connor Mooneyham ever since, he joined that Seattle Seawolves squad. This is what we were looking for. He hasn't done it, and maybe this game is kind of the start of the coming weeks and what we're expected to see from him for the rest of the season.
Absolutely. A guy that I also want to mention that's kind of going under the radar, I think, right now, because he's just putting in consistent performances. Dan Creel. Creel at that center position for Seattle has been just absolutely money. 14.5 fantasy points in round 7, a try, 65 meters gain, and 10 tackles. And you may not have expected him to be as high as he is in the rankings, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Nice 13, counting, Ryan.
13th best in fantasy MLR right now. And he really hasn't had necessarily a big time performance. He had a couple in round 3 and 4 where he was getting close to that 20-digit mark, but he is just racking up double-digit performances every single week.
Yeah, just I mean, look, their center combo is just ridiculous. So Dan Creel is a big part of that. He's always going to be putting up consistent points.
Absolutely. Anyone else on the Seattle side that you want to mention here?
You know, it'd be frustrating being an owner of either Jordan Shate or AJ Altimu.
Oof.
I think they split the kicks this week, completely right down the middle for goal kicks.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
AJ only starting 51 minutes there in that past match. Jordan Chait, if I bring up his numbers there, 29 minutes. Yeah, both of them putting similar numbers up there.
I mean, Alatimo, a guy that we had just a clear-cut number 1, and he
clear cut.
Jordan Chait comes in and just said, "No, I've got something to say about that."
It's interesting. And if Seattle keeps on winning, don't expect that
change
roster or that role decision to change anytime soon between those two players either.
No,
definitely interesting. All right, last game of the week there, 4:00 on Sundays. The San Diego Legion taking on Old Glory DC at home.
Big old Mikey Teo, man.
That's it. San Diego just showed up, man. And I will say, I think out of all the teams in the MLR right now, I think San Diego might be my most favorite team to watch. Just the fast play, the offloading type rugby, the speed, the finesse. It's a lot of fun to watch the San Diego team right now.
Dude, Mikey Teo. After that blunder to start the game from Tito Bonilla, he just murders it. That try he got, how does that big man get moving like that?
Yeah,
man. I mean, every time I
his
see
first
him,
try.
Every time I see him, he's the one kicking the restarts for San Diego, and I forget. I'm like, what is this prop doing kicking the? Oh wait, I see the head.
Yeah,
I know who that guy
prop
is.
doing.
And
dude, his hair is so weird
right
too. Like it's like that cornrow tight to his head.
Yeah. I mean, interesting nugget. I believe I heard through the grapevine, but that was a guy way back in the day had played at the hooker position at a pretty decent level. So that's not surprising.
Yeah,
at all. But yeah, he can move. But I guess, let's just get into it. I mean, San Diego took care of business against Old Glory DC, a little bit closer from a point perspective at halftime. But then they just started rolling away with things. 48-26 victory by San Diego, who is now right atop there in that Western Conference standings, right behind the Seattle Seawolves. But yeah, let's talk about some of these players, and we'll start off by the guy Vandy's absolutely having a crush on here, Mikey Teo.
Hey, I miss you.
Yeah, it's true. It is true. You do miss him, man.
I miss seeing you on our side. You joined the dark side.
Do you find it ironic though
that he joined the Legion?
That he joined the Legion.
I know.
We give you such a hard time about your pseudo fandomship to the San Diego Legion squad.
And that's pseudo fandomship to the Utah Warriors.
Fair
yeah, right.
San Diego Legion.
But yeah, what a fantasy performance here by Mikey Teo.
Ridiculous.
27.2 fantasy points, 110 meters gained, 2 tries, 4 tackles, 2 try assists. Probably I think it's the fantasy performance of the week here. Mikey Teo doing Mikey Teo things.
Yeah, maybe.
Why?
But I
Who's the
think
other guy?
I think maybe there's a guy named Nate Augsbaga.
True, but there's a little bit of bias there because he's
A
on your team there.
try, 2 try
That is
assists,
that is
151,
true. Very
151
close.
meters gained.
27.6 fantasy points. Impressive stuff. Nate Augsburger. I think he has to be your like it makes me laugh. It makes me laugh every time I think about how you ended up with this guy. And it was really solely based on the fact that Vandy took the guy that you were looking at.
Thank you,
And
Vandy.
you ended up with Nate
Thank you,
Augsburger. So
Vandy.
for our viewers and listeners who had maybe not been tagging along since the fantasy draft, Matt was really looking to draft Luke Campbell. Vandy ends up going Luke Campbell in the prior picks to Matt picking. And Matt was left there with a little bit of draft tilt, not knowing where he was going to go. And he's like, all right, I guess I'll choose Nate Augsburger as my scrum half. Not only is Nate Augsburger not even playing at scrum half, he's playing at the back 3 position, which would have been, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, something that should have backfired on you, Matt. But he ends up being the best back 3 player in the entire league from a fantasy perspective so far. I mean,
Thanks,
you look
Vandy.
at what this guy has been able to
Shut
do
up!
this season. It's absolutely insane what this guy has been
Vandy, you're so generous, man. You're so thoughtful.
Oh my god. I'm gonna
He's
get
fourth
sick.
He's 4th in the standings, just behind Joe Mano, after what he was able to do a couple weeks ago with that 35-point performance. But I would argue that Nate Augsburger may be one of the steals of the draft. It's incredible.
for
But
sure.
yeah,
Thank you, Vandy.
27.6 fantasy points here.
Kill him.
Yeah, pretty incredible stuff here. And then I guess a couple other guys that I want to mention. Thomas Aoake. I think that's how you say his name. I don't think it's Aoki.
I don't know. I say it different time every time I say it. So
15.7 fantasy points, 79 meters gained, 1 try. Started at the center position for the first time this season. Pretty impressive stuff. And then I do want to mention also, I believe.
How about the legend Ma'ananu?
Ma'ananu
Getting in there for that try.
Yeah, yellow card though that kind of bit them a little bit, but yeah, pretty solid performance. Blair Cowan though as well, from the back row position, 58 meters gained, 14 tackles, 1 try, 16 total fantasy points.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of points to be had on the San Diego Legion side. Shifting over to Old Glory DC. There were some guys that were adequate. I don't think anyone really jumped off the page here. I think you guys would agree. Jamison Fa'anana Schultz did all right. Continues to start to be a little bit more consistent with those tackle numbers that he's putting up. Highest tackle number of the season.
He needs a try.
21 tackles. He does need a try because that changes the whole narrative, I think, for him in this season if he does get in there. I mean, Tito Diaz-Bonilla kind of saved.
Where are you going with this?
He saved his fantasy kind of performance there when he was able to score that try off of that boot. That
like the first 20 minutes.
Pretty. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, outside of that kind of lucky try there, really, it's not a performance to be really looking at. But nonetheless, 2 conversion kicks, 32 meters gained, 1 try there. And
Penny
then
Lasaka.
I guess, yeah. I mean, Penny Lasaka looked pretty solid.
I like the way Mike DeBoulis looked.
Yes, and that is the guy that I was just going to get to. But yeah, Penny Lasaka, 18.3 fantasy points, 99 meters gained, a try in there. But yeah, Mike DeBoulis is a guy that I want to mention because with the absence of Kurt Baker right now, as he's going through concussion protocol stuff, Mike DeBoulis really looks to be a guy that's making the most of his opportunity. There wasn't starting at the beginning of the season after that first round. Goes 3 matches with coming off the bench, but the past 2 weeks since Kurt Baker's injury has started, and has that put us some pretty solid point performances, double-digit point performances in back-to-back weeks, 12.9 in round 7, 70 meters, 1 try as well. Yeah, pretty solid stuff by Mike DeBoulis. Anyone that I'm missing there from the Old World DC side?
I mean, I'm going to bring up a couple ones. After Stephen Lowenfeld Hippies drops 15 fab on Marcos Young, he ends up not even playing, being in the starting lineup on the weekend. And just another guy, I mean, from week to week, just we have to bring this up to light because everybody seems to love this guy. Danny Tusitala, he is having the opposite of what we expected out of him this year. So it's surprising, and I guess we'll kind of just wait until he starts turning it around.
I mean, it does. Yeah, go ahead, Vandy.
How many tackles did Fanana Schultz get? Want to bring that up real quick?
2021, I believe.
21.
Yeah.
Massive game from him.
Oh yeah.
Jamison. Yeah, we were saying that. He has his highest point total this season, or highest hit total this season so far. And again, that consistency number there, Vandy, with being able to get those high level tackles, going to get double-digit performance every.
Must be nice. What's that like?
All right. But yeah, those were the exciting matchups. Took us a little bit with the extra game there, this one, to get through it. But nonetheless, they were all, I think, had a bunch of storylines throughout each of them. And it's going to be exciting to see how it carries forward here into round 8. Before we get into a round 8 breakdown, let's go a little bit quickly here over a waiver wire kind of update and who's hot here. Who are some guys that you're looking at? I think this week there are a few guys that you definitely will have to take a look at, because you look at what they're able to do, and you want to kind of jump on these performances so that you have them. I mean, I guess the biggest name here is probably Connor Mooneyham. I mean, he's sitting there in the standings.
Or Kara Pryor.
Fourth highest, or Kara Pryor, fourth highest so far in the point totals with the available free agents. But the reason why I say Connor Mooneyham is because it's not often that a player who's consistently starting at the back three position, who is on the best team in the league, is available to you midway through the season. And yes, he hasn't had point performances so far, and it's the reason why he was dropped by you, Matt, throughout the season. But starting 5 out of 6 matches, he's on the best team in the league right now, coming off of a massive performance. He's a guy that you at least got to take a look at. And especially if you're a team that needs to shake up something and just needs to take a flyer on hoping that you're going to get a guy that is going to be able to carry you through the rest of the season, Connor Mooneyham might be that guy for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think you take it with a grain of salt. Yeah, he put up 24.3 points, but you can't forget about the last 6 weeks where he started 5 out of 6 games, but what did he do with it? You know, like, I think for me, it still looks like it's kind of like, what did you do? What did you do for it in the majority of games that you started?
But it's easy to say that as a guy that's sitting at 6 wins and 1 loss, right? The context for you, right, of being able to kind of drop that off is a little bit less for, let's say, you know, like for me, if I'm MLR All Access, I'm getting Connor Mooneyham 100%. Why not? I haven't won a matchup all season long. And this is a guy that's coming off of a 2-try performance on the best team in the league. You know, he hasn't performed yet since this past week, but he's shown that he can do it. And
again, he started, 5 out of 6 games.
Exactly.
He's playing over 60 minutes.
Right. He scores 1 try in any of those matches, and it completely turns around the outlook of Connor Mooneyham. You know what I mean? And again,
that's true.
The vice versa argument, like what you're making, Matt, completely makes sense. What have you done for me lately? And it's really not that much from Connor Mooneyham. But again, I think for a team who may be looking for a guy that could be a difference maker to turn the season around, MLR All Access, Vandy, maybe even you, maybe take a little peek at Connor Mooneyham.
Noah's on bye. I got enough holes to fill right now.
Fair enough. Matt, who's your top guy then heading into this waiver wire?
I got a couple for me. Kara Pryor looks like a guy who's definitely going to be someone you can stream. Brendan O'Connor's still hurt. It seems like Pago Haini just got hurt. I'm going to assume he's not coming back next week. And, he had a game. He came on with I think 70-something minutes. He played 70-something minutes, and he had an absolute game. So he's a guy that I called out last week. That would be a good guy to pick up. This week I think I'm going to say it again, but this week he has a better chance of being in that starting lineup, and therefore a better chance of scoring more points. Another guy I did bring up earlier was also Tyler Fisher. He's down there in why he may not even, be looked at in bidding.
Yeah, it's only his second week, right?
Yeah, and a guy that you can look at as somebody who definitely can fill in that Paul CK role, and definitely once he gets touches, we saw that in their game against the Arrows that he was, he made the most of it. So he can definitely be a guy to look at. And speaking of the Arrows, last one I'm going to bring up, they're starting to get on their home run. You can start bringing back, looking at those Arrows guys. I think their win percentage at home is like 70-something%.
Against New York, though?
Well, I mean, hey, last time New York went up there, last year, they lost.
True.
They went up there and they lost. So
there is something different about Toronto playing at home.
And New York is not the same New York as last year. So I think it'll be interesting.
Especially if they're missing Fido.
Yeah, exactly. And you can kind of take a bit more risk with these Toronto guys if you're looking for a guy to pick up. You can see some of these guys to fill some holes. So yeah.
Another guy that I want to quickly mention here, you did mention him a little bit earlier about a rookie that is getting opportunity, Jack Shaw.
Yeah.
Jack
Yeah.
Shaw, it looks like he's getting a whole bunch of opportunity Rugby Atlanta. 4 out of 5 weeks that he's played, he started. He's racking up the 80 minutes. He's coming off of 2 back-to-back double-digit point performance weeks, scoring his first career try in round 7 for Rugby Atlanta. He's a guy that you might take a look at too, who's a guy who could start to emerge here as we go forwards towards the season with that kind of untapped potential with these rookies these days. So we'll get to see. Anyone else that we're missing off the list? I think we've covered it pretty much all.
I like
it does feel
Hunga
like-
Havili, but I don't
It's
like
true.
him. I don't like him this week against the Cats.
And I think something to
It's true. And you don't know if he's going to start. I mean, this is a rare starter. This is his first start in the last, 7 weeks, right? So for me, I was going to bring him up, Vandy, and that's a good point. But like, I think he's one of those guys you maybe wait to see. Either you bid low on him or you wait to see whether he's actually going to start the upcoming week.
I think if you start him this week, you're doing a big hope because those Cats, man, that defense is legit.
That is true.
Yeah. That is very true. All right. But yeah, it does seem like this week has a little bit more options than weeks past.
Yeah.
So definitely.
Scope me out a scrum half here, Matt. Come on.
Hey, the only one I saw down there was Nick Boyer, so I don't know.
Yeah, I was looking at Nick Boyer and John Lefevre.
Yeah, that's
and neither of those guys really get that much playing time.
Yeah, no.
But hey, Luke Campbell coming off the bench didn't do too bad for you this week.
No, he's on
Luke
bye.
Campbell isn't coming off any bench next week.
Well, no, what I'm saying is that you can take a flyer on some of these bench scrum halves. And best in terms of trying to get something done for you. It's not a lost cause.
No.
That some of these guys coming off the bench, you'll just get you 0 points. It's going to be tough, but it's definitely not 0%. All right, let's now shift on here to round 8's matchups and get through some of these predictions here. Again, Nola Gold on bye, and I believe who's the other team on bye? Dallas Jackals on bye, so they get a week to celebrate their big.
Yo, that's sick! Actually, go out party with. Yo, that's sick.
No kidding. All right. So let's start off with the first matchup of the weekend. Again, all of these matchups, we went from having a game every single day to now we have all the games
in one day
loaded up. I believe.
Hey, it's Easter, man.
On
Come
Saturday. Okay, fair enough.
They got a family.
That is true. That is true. I got to be more sensitive about that. All right, but let's open up here with the first matchup of the weekend, 2:00 Eastern time, April 8th.
Dude, this is a sleeper
on Saturday.
game.
Free Jacks, Chicago Hounds.
This is a sleeper game.
Why you say that, Vandy?
Because I'm telling you right now, these teams are somehow going to go into like a banger of like a 31-28 match or something.
You think so?
Oh, it's going to be 14-11. Take your pick.
But it should be interesting. I mean, again, Chicago Hounds, they're still looking to piece things together. The New England Free Jacks have looked a little bit vulnerable these past 2 weeks.
No Mitch Wilson, probably.
No Mitch Wilson. Remains to be seen whether or not Josh Larson will return back to the lineup. So there's quite a possibility.
Maybe I'll get lucky.
Chicago Hounds could come in, but I will say I think home field advantage does play in New England Free Jacks' favor here. Home field advantage has been huge this season so far, and knowing that Chicago Hounds is still trying to figure stuff out, I think I'm going to go still here with New England Free Jacks.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I'm going to go with the Chicago Hounds.
Wow. Okay.
That back line could do it.
That back line.
Hey, and New England Free Jacks have been trending in one direction. We saw the close game against the Jackals.
You just plugged one direction into a sentence? You're dirt.
The wrong direction.
Yeah. No, he said in one direction. Did you say wrong or one?
Both of them. Wrong.
You said one. You said one.
All right. Let's shift over now to the second matchup of the Saturday, 4:00 Eastern time. The Arrows. First appearance at home at York Lions Stadium. It's going to feel good for them to finally be playing on home turf, but they welcome in a tough team, at least a team that has championship pedigree. We don't know whether or not they are as solid as what we've seen them in the past, but the New York Ironworkers are going to try to come north of the border to steal away a victory from the Toronto Arrows. Should be an interesting one. Who do you guys have in this one?
Andrew Coe, 2-try game, New York.
Whoa, Andrew Coe homecoming 2-try game. I can see it. But I'm going to go with the Toronto Arrows. Arrows at home. They're just another team. They're a completely different team at home. I'm going the Arrows.
Even with all these injuries?
Buddy. The Arrows.
Toronto faithful. It runs in your blood still, eh?
Buddy. You know what?
They get blue and white.
The crowd noise is just like juice right into their bum cheeks.
Ooh.
That's a good one. All right. So I'll have to go the New York Ironworkers in this
You
one.
guys stink.
I know. The Arrows, they're
Yeah,
still
you're right, I
struggling here.
do.
I know home is going to play a big advantage here for them, but I think the Ironworkers are
Yeah.
still a pretty solid team. If it was any of the other kind of mid-roll competing teams, I may say different, but I think I'm going to side with the Ironworkers on this one. Rugby Atlanta taking on Old Glory DC at home.
Another sleeper match.
6 o'clock Eastern time should be interesting. Rugby Atlanta has been looking a little bit tough so far this season. Old Glory DC is still trying to get over that hump. They've come close, but not good enough to steal away some victories. But nonetheless, it's a big time matchup when it comes to the Eastern Conference standings, because you look at the standings. Rugby Atlanta shares the exact same record with Old Glory DC. NOLA Gold is on bye. You could see either one of these teams jumping into second place in the Eastern Conference, depending on how things play out, especially if the Toronto Arrows beat the New York Ironworkers. Man, this Eastern Conference can look completely different solely based on this matchup come same time next week.
Yeah,
This is a tough one.
This is because these guys are middle of the pack.
If it was
Eastern Conference teams, and they both are not necessarily playing that great.
If it was home field advantage for DC, I'd probably go them. But I think just because it's home field, I think I'm going to go Atlanta.
All right.
Yeah, you
Matt,
would.
You got?
I think they're going to wear their peach jerseys this weekend too. So
that could be.
So I mean, if they're wearing their peachies, it's going to be tough to go against them. But
that is true.
Old Glory DC is going to take the win on this one.
I think so too, eh?
I'm gonna go side with Old Glory DC.
You would.
Well, then I gotta stay on Atlanta.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
Nothing. Let's
no,
move on.
I think Old Glory does have, the firepower here to at least take advantage of a Rugby Atlanta team that hasn't. They haven't impressed me yet this season. Rugby Atlanta has really not impressed me at all.
Ryan Gow's about to have a game.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, shifting over to the 8 o'clock.
No.
2 8
I
o'clock.
need a scrum half.
Way too good last weekend. Ryan Reese played way too good.
I know.
2 games at 8 o'clock on Saturday. We'll start off with Vandy's team here, the Houston SaberCats taking on the Utah Warriors in Houston. It's another tough one, man. We have good matchups this week. The Houston SaberCats obviously coming off of a big victory against Rugby Atlanta. Utah upsetting the New England Free Jacks. Vandy, I'll put all the pressure on you, man. You got to side with your boys here, right?
Well, we were the dogs in a home field advantage against New England Free Jacks.
Okay.
And we won by 2. I think I'm gonna go with the Cats. Only because Steven beat me. And he was such a
let me see if this changes your mind at all. I have the betting odds. Do you want to know the betting odds for this match?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So between the Houston SaberCats and Saberwolves, Houston is favored minus 250, Utah at plus 200.
You know what the thing is? I think our back line can do pretty good against their defense, but I don't think our defense can do a damn thing against their front pack.
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
I don't think we can do a damn thing.
It's going to be tough.
Yeah, I'm going Cats.
Oh, you're such a fake supporter. You're probably going to go Legion in the next game, too. Whatever. I'm going Eastern.
Yeah, right, against Seattle? What are you talking about?
I'm going Houston as well.
You're going Houston? All right, I am going Houston as well. Sorry, Vandy.
No.
We'll see how not. But again, I mean, this also has a huge
I'm a realist fan, okay?
This has another huge
You're
implication in the standing as well, Vandy. I mean, the last playoff spot is on the line here. Houston sitting in that 3rd spot. Utah just outside the 4th.
You don't even want the playoff spot.
Just 1 win above the Utah Warriors, only 7 points behind. So a bonus point.
What type of fan doesn't even want the playoff spot?
You're punch drunk.
What type of fan doesn't even want the playoff spot, man?
I know you're in Toronto. I'll drive out there and beat your ass right now.
But you wish.
All right, shifting over to the last matchup of the weekend. Last matchup of the weekend. Yeah, you guys should go to the game.
If it wasn't Easter, I'd say let's do it.
Oh, true. It is Easter. All right, last game of the week. Last game of the week on Saturday. Probably the matchup that everyone is going to have their eyes set on.
Yeah.
2 of the best teams in the MLR. Seattle Seawolves still undefeated. San Diego Legion right behind them in the Western Conference standings. San Diego has been looking hot. Seattle Seawolves squeaking out that win against the NOLA Gold. Still have yet to be beaten. It's going to be a tough one here. Seattle at home, though.
I'm going Seattle.
You're lying. Vandy deep down, he actually told me earlier that he's going San Diego Legion for this game. That's where his bloodlines are. You're going Seattle, eh?
Yeah. And I want Lopetti to put up 2 tries too. Let's go.
Whatever. I'm gonna go San Diego Legion. These guys are on a roll. And they're gonna get Seattle their first
smoke
loss.
somebody.
I would also
Buddy,
choose
of course
the
you
San
would.
Diego.
Right up his
I
butt.
would. I would choose the San Diego Legion, but looking into the weather that is happening this Saturday, it's going to be cold and it's going to be rainy, and ain't going to play
me
in San
Seattle.
Diego Legion's playing style with
Okay.
that quick, fast-paced play. I'm going to side with Seattle Seawolves for that very reason.
Good to know. I'm going San Diego Legion still.
All right,
Yeah.
sounds good. All right, well, hey, exciting matchups to come here in round 8. We had an exciting round 7 with all of a full slate of games, some decided by the slimmest of margins. We'll see whether or not we'll be treated to another exciting week of MLR rugby here. That's obviously going to translate to an exciting round of fantasy MLR as well. Guys, final thoughts heading into round 8.
Hey, let's keep it going, Van. You pull out a dub, I'll pull out a dub. We'll keep it going. You know what I mean? I'll give you this little guy right here next week.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, except they'll say participation, clown. All right.
You better win, boy. I swear to God, you better win this whole damn thing.
All right. Well, hey, enjoy the round 8 matchups. Happy Easter to all of those of you who celebrate it. It should be an exciting day, I should say. I mean, Saturday's a rugby day. So it's basically all works out, and it's going to be an exciting one for sure with the 5 matchups that we have slated for this weekend. For Matt, for Devin, Vandy, Vanderpool, I'm Ryan Yee, and we'll be back next week with another episode of the Fantasy Ruckers Show.
Vandy loves the Legion.
You've been listening to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, covering everything rugby from the MLR and beyond. We hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and be sure to tell all your friends. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, connect with us on social media at the Fantasy Ruckers. Till next time, this is the Fantasy Ruckers Show, signing off.